Time is short, so I'll be concise. I wanted to talk about something known as ratings agnostic design, because often, when we start a project, the first agenda, is it going to be LEED Platinum, is it going to be Griha, etc., etc., and we chase sustainable design or green architecture as it's called, trying to tick some box and achieve some target. But I think if we can try and pursue ratings agnostic design, I think we'll be better for it. So the case study that I bring to you today is a design competition we did for Indian Institute of Management in Calcutta. These are all the wonderful teammates of ours in the project, including Mr. Dharkar and his very able Ahmedabad team. Our green consultant who guided us and held our hand very well through this entire journey was Swati Puchapalli from Hyderabad, Terra Viridis, and these are all the remaining consultants. The point we're trying to make is, we've always been saying at AHC, and Mr. Contractor has always been saying this, that land is very precious, and we're glad to see that now there's somebody else with more repute saying the same thing in the form of Sadhguru, and that's a commodity that simply can't be reproduced. So we did a small study of what is the carbon footprint if you take a flight from Bombay to Calcutta and come back. It's about 0.6 tons of carbon for one person. And what is the appropriate carbon we need to spend in an entire year in order to make this climate, this planet sustainable and bring the temperature down by around 2 degrees. It's around 2 tons per person. So that just gives you an idea of how far off we are in terms of our individual carbon footprints. So frankly, when the institute was talking about Griha 5-star, we sort of upped the ante, and we said we should go for a zero carbon campus rather than a zero energy or a zero waste, but rather a zero carbon campus. And for to break this down into very simple English terms, what is zero carbon? So it's essentially everything you consume, all the operating carbon from energy, air conditioning, all of that, plus all the operating carbon of your cooking, vehicular movement, your computers, everything, plus the embodied carbon which is there in each and every material that you use, and you total up the three and you got to sequester it, that is equal it out by doing something else. So you can plant forests, you can do biogas generation, and so many other things. So that's how you actually get to zero carbon. So it's not something that happens on the snap of a finger. It's something that you have to very diligently calculate and come to an answer to. So we sort of enticed the institute into telling them that we can map out your zero carbon journey and get IIM Calcutta carbon neutral by 2050, and get them into a league of much larger universities that have already set their goals for the next 10 to 20 years. So that's the site. It's about 2 hours from Calcutta airport. So 0.6 tons to get to Calcutta, and then the journey to the campus has to be calculated. The campus by itself has no real architectural character. There are some old buildings. There are a few nicely done buildings by Christopher Benninger in the past 10 years. And then there are these sporadic buildings here and there. But what's common in the campus is that everything which is not built is like a forest. And if you dig hardly 1.5 foot into the soil, you'll get water. That's how, that's where the water table is. So this is the map we kind of laid out for them, that by 2023, which is now looking like 26, all your new buildings would be net zero. By 26, your heritage buildings can be converted to net zero. By 29, we can be operationally carbon neutral. Then comes the long period of foresting the campus with the number of trees that you need to sequester all that carbon. And by that calculation obviously this is not all accurate. This is just some, with a good amount of knowledge we calculate, you can be carbon neutral by 2050. So to actually be carbon neutral, we need to be net zero energy, water, zero waste to landfill ratio, Flood resilience was important in this campus because it does get flooded every year at least 3 to 4 times a year. The health and well-being and the biophilia in the campus needs to be topmost. We need food self-sufficiency, which we've also looked at, and again biodiversity was important because this campus is already visited by Siberian cranes once a year. I think there's some journey that they make and they stop here once a year. So when we gave a stab at the design, the institute had an intake of 1227 students, and by 2036 they wanted to reach 3,100 students. So what we essentially started to do is we took the 135 acres of land and we chopped it up into what it needs to be in order to be zero carbon. So we realized that the lake is already 33 acres, we can't do anything about it. We needed 36 acres of full forest, indigenous forest. We had to reduce all our construction down to only 15 acres. We had some ratios and percentages for roads, footpaths. We needed 3.5 acres of vegetable farming to be, to be food self-sufficient. Permaculture was 17.5 acres, and we had only around 9 acres to do ornamental landscaping. So we took the ground coverage plan, which was in 2020, and we had to achieve 3 times the student capacity by 2036, but retain the same ground coverage. So obviously you have to go vertical, and that's what ultimately led to the master plan, where we did a study of all the old buildings and how we slowly start to add buildings. We get rid of older buildings, and you eventually come to a master plan which is having around 11% ground coverage, 35 acres of forest, and all of the other figures I gave you on the permaculture, etc. So that's what actually led to the master plan, rather than some pre-engineered stroke of genius that led to an impressive master plan. And we're quite happy for it because it lays itself out also quite well. So and then the obvious, we wanted to make this a pedestrian and bike friendly layout. It rains, believe it or not, it rains for about 200 to 250 days of the year in Calcutta, even if it's just a little bit rain. So we wanted to make this a campus where all buildings are connected by covered walkways, and in that what we did is we sort of designed this element called the Ulta Chhata, which is like an upside down umbrella, which works as a covered walkway but also works as a solar panel, and then you piggyback on it with everything else like your CCTV, Wi-Fi, all of that onto the pole, lighting, etc. And we then give some fictitious calculation of how it pays itself back in 10 years. It's important to know when the calculation is fictitious and when it's not. And then we sort of spread around all the recreational activities into different parts of the campus. We created a marketplace, which we'll show you images of, and the existing pools in which they already do fishing, we sort of designated them as fishing pools, and this is also where the Siberian crane comes. So only very few people go there. And in and around the food court is where we did this concept of vegetable farming, so like a farm to plate concept, and it was received quite well. So the idea is to create a campus within a forest that already exists. So we looked at the multiple forest types that would grow and thrive well in Calcutta. Remember, we had to create 35% of the land into forest. We had a flood resilience problem, so we had to berm up all the edges so that the campus doesn't flood. I mean, we can't do much about the water level. And then obviously come the aesthetics, a completely new look to the campus. Most of the roads weave around the existing trees. That's how we dealt with all the edge between the land and the water. We cantilevered out some decks, so those spaces could be enjoyed. And because we had to berm things up and down, we got natural steps and things that created. And each zone of the campus, like the forest, the faculty housing or the student housing, had a different kind of plantation. So for example, the faculty housing was the mixed deciduous forest. As we move to the food court area, it's the mangrove or the wetland. So accordingly, the trees and the landscaping and all was all selected. So these are some images. This is some calculation as to what could grow in this campus in summer, monsoon and winter, and we sort of earmarked the pieces of land where this could actually happen. And yeah, so that's how it looks. And we have a little video that we can play. Also worth mentioning that there's a big nala that leads directly to the Hooghly. So twice a year that level goes up and down by almost 2 feet. Most of the new buildings are designed in steel. This was a reaction during the pandemic when there was a labor shortage, and West Bengal is well known for its steel industry. That's the marketplace I showed you. Yeah, so the rest of it is a little boring, so we'll cut it out. And with this, thank you. We just wanted to, bring out that I think design doesn't need to be chasing any kind of rating or any kind of certification. It needs to be more agnostic and more built into the DNA of any project. you kind of get 1 in 10 projects where you can do that, and that's all from me. I'd like to introduce the next speaker, a friend and a mentor, architect Kiran Kapadia. He's an architect and an urban designer. Received his bachelor's degree from the famous CEPT Ahmedabad and master's degree in urban design from Harvard University, USA. He founded Kiran Kapadia and Associates in 1991, which has grown steadily over the years. The firm is involved in a wide range of projects and has won numerous professional awards. Kiran, or Kiran Bhai as I like to call him, is actively involved in academics and has served as visiting faculty at various institutes in the country. He is currently a member of the Academic Council at the School of Environment and Architecture SEA in Mumbai. Kiran Bhai is also a passionate runner, having run numerous marathons in India and abroad, and he recently completed the Boston Marathon in April 22. A warm applause for that. Kiran Bhai also earned the coveted 6-star medal, which is given to runners who have completed world marathon majors, which include Tokyo, Boston, London, Berlin, Chicago, and New York.